So, welcome back to Sweetly Savory. If you're a first-time viewer, then you may not remember that 6 months ago, I launched this channel, and I first did it with a video on how to roast spaghetti squash, my friend here. And I figured, in honor of 6 months, I could do a revisited of spaghetti squash. That was just a, here, let's roast some spaghetti squash, and I'll just show you how to do it because, you know, you kind of do need a how-to on that. But this one is, let's make a meal out of it. And I'm going to be quite honest with you, I haven't made this one before. And so it's just going to be an adventure for all of us. It's probably going to be one for the fail books. And we're just going to see where it takes us, much like everything else that we do. I mean, that's life. Just kind of figuring it out as we go. It's a good Jason Mraz song that I'm humming in my head. So this recipe is cheesy garlic parmesan spaghetti squash. And I don't think that I took any garlic. That's what I'm missing. Garlic powder. Please hold. Alright. So we've got our garlic powder here. So it's parmesan, garlic, butternut squash, cheesy, gooey goodness. And what you're first going to need is some cream cheese, and you're going to want that to be softened. So I've got my trusty food scale right here, and I wrapped it up with some saran wrap because we want there to be as little mess as possible. I hope that's 2 ounces. This might be enough. I hope so. Oh, it's too much. Too much. So we got our 2.5 ounces, a little over. We're gonna leave our couple of ounces of cream cheese out, and let's break into this bad boy. So if you remember from my original video on this, I find the best way to prepare a spaghetti squash is to poke the living heck out of it. That way you have an easier time with your knife breaking through the exterior. And please excuse the meowing cat. She thinks that she is still hungry. Now I've got my oven set to 450 because this recipe recommends 400. But you know, with my gas stove, and all ovens are different also, that you can adjust the oven temperature to be what is going to work best for you. Alright, and we're working on the other half. And of course the other ingredients that I've got here on the table, I've got my mozzarella cheese. This is just the pizza blend that I have here because we had some pizza from the a couple of weeks ago. Fabulous video of that you can watch. And we've got Parmesan cheese, and I'm fairly certain that the recipe should be for like grated Parmesan that you're gonna buy in the little triangle, but I had some Parmesan left over in the fridge, and I think that'll serve its purpose, because what we're just really looking for, I'm thinking, is the nutty flavor of Parmesan. It doesn't really have a melty quality to it. That would be mozzarella, and I think we'll be fine with the amount of mozzarella that we have. And the recipe calls for 3/4 cup of mozzarella, 1 cup of Parmesan, so I've got 1 cup of mozzarella and 3/4 cup Parmesan here. We'll be just fine. Cheese is cheese is cheese. And the other seasonings I've got, garlic powder because it's cheesy garlic. And the other things that we have are garlic powder because it's cheesy garlic spaghetti squash, parsley flake, pepper, and sea salt. Calls for kosher salt, but I've got sea salt, whatever kind of big flaky salt you've got, that's gonna work the best, because table salt, that's gonna be like too much for the recipe, and then your food's gonna be super salty. Bigger salt flakes, they just work better in food sometimes, and that's just what it calls for. I know that there's a scientific reason, and I'm kind of blanking on it right now, so hopefully I can edit in some words over here. So we're gonna move these things to the side, dig in. So we can just break this guy open, and ta-da! There we are. Now what you're gonna wanna do is scoop out all the innards. Just go right into the trash. All right, so we're back with our big spoon, and our garbage can is right here. So we're just gonna go ahead and scrape these insides out. And I usually say for this sort of thing that it doesn't have to be super duper perfect, but I think for the application of the baked butternut squash, you're going to want to get as close to perfect for getting the seeds out as possible. And there we are. And that's only because we're putting in some other stuff in there. So we've got one, and we'll move on to the second half. All right, so we've got our tray here that we're gonna roast our butternut squashes on, and we're gonna do a tablespoon or about of olive oil, and I want to make sure that this oil is pretty liberal, because that's going to be the moisture for our roasting. Sprinkle on some of this sea salt and our pepper. And it might have looked like I put a whole bunch on there. I kind of did. But that's going to be livening up our squash and giving it extra flavor. Because otherwise it's just going to come out and be like, and that's probably why if you have eaten butter or spaghetti squash in the past and you're like, it's just squash. It's just like, it's really bland and not flavorful and it doesn't add anything to my meal. That could be why, because you want to add liveliness to your food. It's just like when you're going to make pasta, you salt your water so it brings all the flavor of the pasta out more, and you're not just going to have bland pasta. You want to know that you're having a good meal, and by adding that salt, it's going to liven up your dish a lot more. Arrange the squash cut side down on our roasting pan, and the oil that was left in here, because there was quite a bit left, I'm going to put on the outside of my squash because I don't want it to get too dry. Now that's just a personal preference, and also my hand is already dirty, so I might as well just make the whole squash dirty too. There we are, look at that. And we're gonna roast until the squash is about tender soft with a fork. And this recipe says about 40 minutes. It's usually closer to 50 or an hour for me, 50 to 60 minutes. And I've never done spaghetti squash in this oven before, so we'll just see where it goes, and I can give you an update on that. That will be enough time for you, the viewer. You are a very special person today. You get to like and subscribe to Sweetly Savory. You can do that in down by the description below. You can like and you can subscribe. You can ring that bell for notification updates when new content is promoted. We'll be back in however long it takes for these to roast. And we're back. So what we're gonna do now is make our inside for our Parmesan spaghetti squash. So I've got my 2.5 ounces of softened cream cheese here. And I'm just gonna use what's left in these containers for my other cheeses. 3/4 of a cup of mozzarella, but I think I've got about a cup in here. And 1/2 cup or 1 cup of the grated parmesan. And I think I've got about 3/4 of a cup in my container there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and dump these in. Probably try to blend these together. Wow, cheese palooza here. But we're gonna blend all of these together right now. So I've blended everything together, and this is what it's come out like. It's kind of pasty, and I have a feeling that's what we want. Good golly, we gotta put in seasoning. 1/2 teaspoon garlic powder. And we're just gonna shake. All right, and the parsley, I'm gonna do on the top, and I think I'm just gonna do a little bit of the salt in here, just to round out the flavors, like for the same reason for putting it in the squash, and a little bit of pepper. And I'll just try to incorporate that. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my workspace. We'll be back with the spaghetti squash once that's ready for the next step, and we'll take it from there. So our time has run out for our spaghetti squash, 40 minutes, and I misread the recipe because the remaining 10 minutes that you would put it in there, you want to put your cheese in back into the squash boats and stick them back in the oven and let them brown up for like 8 to 10 minutes. So that's what we're gonna do. What we need to do very, very carefully is flip these. And oh yeah, these are definitely done. And scrape out our squashes. Well, not scrape them out. We're just gonna break up the little strands in here. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we'll just eat right out of these boats. So we're going to do half, approximately, of our cheese concoction. All right. Last but not least, our parsley flakes. All right. Back into the oven they go for about 8 to 10 minutes, and then we will be back with our final product. Our time is up here, and ooh, this looks mighty fine. Garlic cheesy squash boats, and I've got to go grab a lactate. Here we are, one lactate. Oh man, this looks like heaven. No cream cheese. This is a nice, like, maybe it's the Parmesan that's the nutty flavor. I need another bite. And the stringiness from the mozz. Oh boy. The creaminess. That's the cream cheese. Clearly. Cream cheese. This is such a great way to celebrate 6 months for Sweetly Savory. Bringing it back to where we started with the roasted spaghetti squash and stepping it up a level with these cheesy boats. And who knows, maybe in 6 months, hopefully it's not that long, but you know, next time we go ahead and do these, do them a little bit healthier or a different way, because you can do endless possibilities with this. Chicken parmesan and have your spaghetti squash as your side instead of pasta, or lo mein. I've done that in the past. I can do like a chicken lo mein and use the spaghetti squash as your noodles. It works with anything because it doesn't taste like anything. It's gonna take on the flavor of what you're cooking, and that's what's really fantastic about spaghetti squash. And sometimes it can get a bad rap because people are like, well, it doesn't taste like pasta. It doesn't have to taste like pasta. It's a lot better for you, and this cheese goodness is just so naughty. That makes it worth it. Balances out. So good. So, hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for sticking around for 6 months of this adventure. And remember to like and subscribe to Sweetly Savory. Like this video. And maybe I've put some sort of curated playlist over here for you. And you can subscribe down here. Make sure to ring that bell for notifications. I don't have the bell on me, that's fine. But we'll see you again next time, and eat something else that'll be super, super delicious. I hate being lactose intolerant.